brutal fight on the landing ground.
Thank you for joining us. You are listening to A Radio, and this is the Morning Moment. We're on weekdays, 11:45 Eastern. Follow us on Spreaker.com and click on the like button. This Morning Moment I've entitled Socialism in America's Backyard. This piece I'm doing for a couple of reasons. First, because I want to continue to show Canadians what's really going on. And second, and this is just as important, this is what you are only one election away from in America. Just one election away. I can't believe it's that close. Canada and America are neighbours. We share a common border. Up to September 11, 2001, there was little or no visible divide across the international line. Just a few markers here and there, a few precisely placed stone markers in the more visible locations. The international border even straddles entire towns and in some cases individual buildings and structures. But through all that, there is much more that unites us than divides us. There are many, many family links on both sides, going back generations. So you could say we have a lot in common, which is true, and was true, up until the 1970s when Trudeau 1 came to power. That's when the real divide started. What I'm about to tell you is not politically correct, and may even be defined as hate speech, but it's historical fact. The slow, inexorable crawl towards socialism began then. It started with the first divide, that being a small thing, the introduction of the socialist metric system, and then building on that, the forced French language, both written and verbal, into every form of Canadian life. Now I want to make it clear, I was not here then, but historians have documented all that I speak. So it's not hate speech, it's historical fact. We have to put comments like that in because of the latest incarnation of Trudeau, Trudeau 2, the art teacher. Over the years, Canada has suffered more and more from creeping socialism. In my mind, its goal was a simple one, driven by hate and loathing by one province and its minority population. For our loyal and unwavering friends to the south, I'll leave you to pick through the bones of that statement. Over the years, with successive governments, with few exceptions, Canada has crept slowly towards socialism, with obvious results. Because of Canada's geographical location, the results of the creeping socialism have been masked successfully from its citizens. However, there comes a point with every socialist that they need to break out and stand and proclaim the promised land. We have reached that point in Canada, regrettably. Ladies and gentlemen, I have to tell you very bluntly that Trudeau and the Federal Liberal Party are neither liberal in the true meaning of the word or democratic. They have finally come out and said as much by their deeds and actions. The latest action, which I mentioned in the Morning Moment, April and climate change, economic change, has finally come out of the socialist closet. I'm going to read some comments, and I ask you to compare and contrast. Remember, Canada is just a few yards, a few inches from you, but it might as well be a continent away. The stark difference in economic outlook is stunning and should give you cause for concern. Consider that row of trees that you can see on Canada's side of the border. Our government considers they're evil and contribute to climate change. A packet of cornflakes in Canada must have French on it or it's illegal. You cannot own a gun without extraordinary rules and regulations. Many American TV channels and radio stations are barred or blocked. Internet access is controlled by a very few, and our cell phone service to the majority of the nation is pitiful. The cost to subscribers is the highest in the Western world. We pay nearly double on average for food and clothes, sometimes even more. As for our gasoline, we're paying over $4 a gallon, which is masked by the metric system. And the list goes on and on. And what's missing out of all that? It's simple. A free market. Because a free market economy drives prices down with competition. There is no competition in Canada. If you doubt the lengths to which one province will stop the influence of our neighbours to the south, consider this. Target tried to move up to Canada to set up operation, but they were shocked to find out that only Canadian marked goods could be sold. So after just 1 year here and spending millions of dollars setting up, they were gone. Walmart were taken to court by the unions, who, like all liberals, know the law better than any other group. After all, they were more than likely involved, certainly in Quebec, or instrumental in writing those laws, just like the US. They didn't win the first time, so they fought and took it to the Supreme Court and won. But at what cost? I'm going to quote now from a Walmart spokesman at the time. This is a spokesman in Montreal, where the company is currently based. The company is, quote, disappointed with the decision. Quote, we will review the decision carefully in order to determine what our next steps will be, unquote. That's Alex Roberton, Walmart Canada's Director of Corporate Affairs. And he said that in an email. It didn't sound exactly positive, did it? So the future of Walmart Canada, in my mind, is very uncertain. One thing is for sure, Walmart doesn't take kindly to being told what to do. So my guess is that we haven't heard the last of this. Target is gone. Those are just a few examples. There is a wall to the north. It's an economic one and a cultural one, erected by the province of Quebec-based liberal socialists. And over the last 30 to 40 years, they have managed to erect it quite successfully all over our southern border. So now we come to the consequences. These are the current ones, not even the future ones. I'm going to quote from several different sources. The first is a Canadian financial newspaper. This quote is both astounding and disturbing that a financial newspaper does not know what's going on in its own country. But then again, maybe that's not really that surprising. We only have to look to our neighbours to the south and their media to maybe ask ourselves, why are we so surprised? While their media bash their government every single day, ours, well, you be the judge. Any theory why that might be? No? Are you sure about that? Because I'm not. Here's the piece from the Financial Post. Now, all my links will be on my site. So this is just a short clip. It's from their March 1st episode, and it's headed, Canada's economy practically grinds to a halt, and nobody saw it coming. Really? Nobody saw it coming? I think there's a lot of people in Canada saw it coming. Here's the piece. Data reveals much bleaker future than anyone anticipated, with weakness extending well beyond the energy sector. Canada's economy practically came to a halt in the final 3 months of 2018, in a much deeper than expected slowdown that brings the underlying strength of expansion into doubt. The country's economy grew by just 0.1% in the fourth quarter, for an annualized pace of 0.4%. Statistics Canada said Friday from Ottawa. That's the worst quarterly performance in 2.5 years, down from an annualized 2% in the third quarter, and well below the economist expectations of 1% annualized increase. While a slowdown was widely expected in the final months of the year due to falling oil prices, it's a much bleaker picture than anyone anticipated, with weakness extending well beyond the energy sector. Consumption spending grew at the slowest pace in almost 4 years. Housing fell by the most in a decade. Business investment dropped sharply for a second straight quarter, and domestic demand posted its largest decline since 2015. This piece is from Bloomberg, also March 1st. Headline, Startling New Halt to Economy Stokes Fears of Canadian Recession. Canada is on recession watch after its economy almost stalled at the end of last year. Gross domestic product grew by 0.1%, fourth quarter 0.4 annualized, Statistics Canada said Friday. In other words, they're just repeating the blurb. It's a weak enough number though could be revised into a contraction as new data comes in, and there may be no immediate relief in sight to start 2019. Most economists have been expecting the first 3 months of this year will be weaker because of the impact of oil production cuts mandated by Alberta's government. That's another local socialist government. While the slowdown was expected, the picture is much bleaker than anyone anticipated, with weakness extending well beyond the battered energy sector, reflecting a confluence of headwinds from the impact of higher interest rates to global trade tensions denting business and household confidence. Though the labour market is still quite strong, Friday's numbers suggest Canada may have few reserves to weather any new shocks. Judging by the employment numbers, we're not close to a recession, but we're in a sluggish growth environment, where one more piece of bad news that isn't currently out there could certainly send us there. Avery Shield, chief economist to CIBC Capital Markets, said in a telephone interview. This piece is from narcity.com, same time period. Experts say Canada is at risk of experiencing a recession in 2019. The country is on track to hit hard times next year. It is no secret that Canadians have been struggling financially as of late, with rising costs of living in Canada and interest rates. It can be hard to make ends meet at the end of the month. Unfortunately, according to portfolio manager at Fidelity Investments, David Wolf, in an interview with Maclean's, Canada could be heading into harder times, even harder times, in 2019. When it comes to the risk of actual recession, Wolf links this to rising interest rates, paired with the fact that Canadians are more indebted than ever. As a result, the period ahead is looking likely to be challenging for the Canadian economy. And there are many, many more pieces out there. Many more pieces. If you do a search on financial pages, you will find, under such words as hot economy, growth, slowdown, etc., lots of articles. They are looking at the world economy to blame the slowdown, even blaming America for the slowdown. But housing sales are dropping, car sales are dropping. They're even going as far as to blame low oil prices. The very oil this government has moved heaven and earth to prevent getting to market. What they claim to be are experts. They sit in their financial ivory towers pontificating on this minute detail and that minute detail. But they are afraid to touch the big liberal elephant in the room, because what they are talking about currently is what's happened now, not what's going to happen. When the national carbon tax is introduced, Canada will go into a massive recession, which they're not even talking about, because goods and services will cost so much more. No, they'd rather blame it on those evil Americans stealing everything from everyone. No, the real reason is because Canada and Canadians are being forced down a path of pure socialism and, quite frankly, evil. This government will preside over a massive recession, or God forbid worse. Self-inflicted, yes, self-inflicted by evil, ideological politicians who care nothing for its citizens, nothing. They believe fossil fuels are evil and are the cause of fake fury. In other words, climate change, which is fake, and they know it. It's nothing more than a smokescreen to force a nation down a dark and depressing future with no hope of relief. Oh, some of the liberals who are following along believe what they're told. They actually believe it, while others know the truth. They know the truth. And many, many more of them remain silent and, quite frankly, complicit. Canadians this October have a choice, quite frankly. It's not a great choice, though. They either vote for full-blown socialism under the banner of the Federal Liberal Party of Canada, or vote SINO, which stands for Conservative in name only, like our Republican friends, which really isn't much of a choice, is it? It's a bit like having, 200 John McCains. Slightly better than Obama's, but not by much. Canada does face a very bleak future, but one way or another, we will survive. But what the country and its people will have to face and look like afterwards, well, only history will be able to answer that. And that's my comment. You can find more at aradio.wordpress.com, where you can find links to us on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, iTunes, iHeartRadio, Gab and email. We're also on Spotify. Just go to the podcast section and type Canadian Politics with a twist and you'll find us. We are continuing to reach out to you, so please pass on these links. Please click on the follow button on Spreaker.com. You can listen to all our morning moments at Spreaker.com under A Radio. That's EHRADIO, A Radio, and click on the like button. And you can hear a review of our morning moments on WHBJ-DB, News, Talk, Radio on Spreaker.com. Join us and many others. And you can find all our podcasts and morning moments at aradio.wordpress.com. Click on the Morning Moments tab.